Hey everyone, welcome to That's Peculiar. I'm Nathan,
I'm Andra.
and I have an episode for you today. So, little disclaimer again before we start. Anything we share on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and if we have opinions on it, we will tell you that it's opinion, but none of this is to be taken as like we're promoting anything or necessarily believe what we're talking about.
Right.
Okay? Just fun, weird, peculiar things. That's what we do here. All right. So, today we are going to be talking about conspiracy theories. We're not just focusing on like one though, we're kind of doing like an overall theme, like just like different ideas. Before we actually dive into the conspiracy theories, I do want to explain the structure of like how the episode is going to go. Because if you're unfamiliar with conspiracy theories and how they are like ranked, it's very interesting. So I don't know if you've seen this image online, and it's called like the conspiracy theory iceberg or the conspiracy iceberg chart. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
No. Okay. So what it is, it's like a meme, and it's a picture of an iceberg floating in the ocean, and the tip above the water. That's the conspiracy theories that most people have heard of, like the silly ones, the widely accepted ones, or the ones that people like joke about at parties, like Bigfoot.
Out of the water, you said? Just like the tip. Okay.
Like tip of the iceberg. That's like all like the fun, fluffy conspiracy theories. And then as you go below the surface, the theories they get darker, weirder, more obscure, harder to follow. And then those are the ones that the further down you go in this like depth of the iceberg, it's things that are like it can get scary kind of conspiracy theories.
Like tin hat scary.
Foil. Like extra.
Foil on hair.
Like extra scary.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting at the bottom of the iceberg, that's where all the theories start connecting. So it's not like one weird idea. It starts to become like this happens because of this, and it has to be like this because of that. So it gets really convoluted and confusing. So the iceberg is just a metaphor for how conspiracy thinking works, and it just makes sense for people. And so people will often start off with like a harmless conspiracy theory, but you can keep going deeper and deeper and deeper, and then you just get lost in conspiracy theories. Okay, so today we're going to go through that iceberg, and we're going to start with the surface and kind of work our way down, and we'll explore what people believe, why they believe it, and what that all means for like just the world in general. Some of it's gonna be like funny, some of it's gonna be a little bit maybe disturbing, just weird maybe, but it's gonna tell something important about like human psychology, cultural distrust, and then sometimes it's just a way for us to make sense of a very complicated world.
Okay.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds groovy?
Fun. It reminds me of like our superstition
episode,
but like more in depth.
Mm-hmm. And we're gonna talk about a few different conspiracies also. Whether you're a skeptic or you're a believer or somewhere in between. What?
I didn't hear skeptic. I heard skip deck or skip dick.
What's that?
So I was like, huh? And then you kept going, and I was just like, oh, skeptic.
Skeptic.
I just heard it wrong, and my brain was like,
something's not right.
Yeah.
So at the top, the funny stuff: internet hoaxes, parodies, oddball celebrity rumors.
Ooh.
So let's start at the surface. One of the ones that I'm sure you're familiar with is that birds aren't real.
No.
You haven't heard of that one?
No, and I'm terrified of birds, so I don't believe it.
One of the most viral and satirical conspiracy theories in recent years is that birds aren't real. So according to the movement, birds were secretly replaced by government surveillance drones sometime in the mid-20th century. And every bird you see today, not a creature, but a camouflaged flying camera recording your every move.
How do you explain birds that like need help and you pick them up and they're birds.
They're very sophisticated.
They feel real.
So this started in 2017 as a parody by Peter McKindo, who held up a sign at a protest that simply read, "Birds aren't real." It was improv, but it caught on like wildfire. The satire was intentional, meant to parody the absurdity of real conspiracy culture by pushing the envelope into something obviously false. Obviously, in air quotes. They created slogans like, "If it flies, it spies," and held fake protest marches and rallies. It became kind of a Gen Z performance art, a satire so deadpan that it accidentally fooled some actual conspiracy theorists, which only made it funnier.
Mm-hmm.
So people who tend to believe in conspiracy theories in general really latched on, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, birds aren't real," but it was a joke. And
Yeah,
a lot of Gen Z humor is very dry and very British.
it's my sense of humor.
I love when I'm dry and someone's like, "For real?" I'm like, "No."
You're like, have you not lived?
So birds, for the record, are real. But this theory, it is genuine, is genius level trolling and a perfect case study of how easy it is to build a movement when you just sound confident enough.
Right.
Next up, one of the internet's strangest geography conspiracies is that Finland isn't real. This theory suggests that Finland, the country, is a total fabrication invented by Russia and Japan. They claim that Japan wanted unrestricted fishing rights in the Baltic Sea and conspired with the Soviets to invent a landmass to keep others out. Supposedly, Nokia shipments are actually fish.
Isn't the shopaholic character that like cute little redhead and
Yeah,
she's in
Finland.
Wedding Crashers?
Finland!
She's from Finland.
She's not from Finland. She says she's from Finland.
No, in the actual, like in her
Oh,
real
real
life.
life, she's actually from
Yeah,
Finland.
I'm gonna look
Is
it
she,
up.
is she though?
Or she's from a mass hole of fishing state. Something tells me she doesn't care about fishing.
And it sounds bonkers because it is. The theory originated on Reddit as a joke, and its own creator has admitted that the post is purely a weird childhood memory that turned into satire. But again, internet lives for it. So it becomes nearly impossible to distinguish parody from genuine belief. There are people who took this seriously, and today there's a whole subreddit for it. And it's filled with memes and mock investigations. So it's
Okay.
just, people are weird,
She's
man.
not Finnish.
I didn't think so.
She is Scottish, born in
Okay.
Scotland, and then they moved to Australia. And then she lived in Greece.
Okay.
And her father lived in Germany. So kind of all over, but Finland's not even on the list.
So so you haven't heard of birds aren't real, and you haven't heard of Finland not existing.
No.
Have you heard of flat Earth?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, well, don't say of course because you haven't heard of fake birds in Finland not being real.
Well, I have heard of flat
Ugh.
Earth.
So this one is outlandish, but it has a huge following. And and side note, like because I like a good laugh, I started listening to a podcast. This was years ago, called the Flat Earth Podcast, and it's hosted by flat earthers who really believe that the Earth is flat.
Yeah, I've met several flat Earth believers.
No, you haven't. For real?
Yes.
Mm-mm. No. So, despite thousands of years of scientific understanding, satellite images, physics, and basic observation, there remains a group of people, quite a few of them, who believe that the Earth is a flat disk, not a globe, not a sphere.
Yeah, and that we never landed on the moon.
I think they all believe that too, because of the firmament. That's a whole thing. Funny enough, I think this was a real post that they had the Flat Earth Society posted on Facebook one time that said they have flat earthers all around the globe.
Yeah, no.
And
I think that is true.
And someone commented and said, "Read that again, but slower."
All around.
The
round
globe.
The globe.
They said the globe. Yeah.
Which is spherical.
Which you don't believe in. Okay. So they believe that the North Pole is at the center, Antarctica is actually a giant ice wall surrounding the outer rim, and that gravity isn't real, and that the Earth is actually accelerating upward to create the illusion of gravity. Some say NASA is a part of the cover up. Others say satellite photos are faked. And yes, they even have an annual Flat Earth convention with keynote speakers and passionate debates.
Passionate debates about what?
Debates about how the Earth is flat. I'm sure they have
Is this
some.
flat?
I'm sure they call some Globers up and they talk about.
Is this flat?
No, it's a can.
That's why I couldn't go to stuff like this. I'd be like, is this flat?
But what does that have
Is
to
this
do with
flat?
the flat Earth theory? They would decimate you. You couldn't handle it.
I don't know. I think I could handle it.
Hey everyone! A quick interruption before the show continues. This is Nathan, and I have a huge favor to ask. Please leave us a rating and a review if you are enjoying the show to help us reach more listeners like you. We love bringing this podcast to you every week and are trying to learn how to make it even more enjoyable for our listeners. Thank you for your support. So, Flat Earth theory is a case study in how the internet can create belief systems from thin air, or in this case, very flat air.
No, not gravitated air.
No gravity here. Scientists have obviously debunked every claim, from physics of ship horizons to the way shadows fall at different latitudes, but facts don't always matter when belief is built on distrust, not evidence.
I once believed in Santa too.
Tooth fairy here. There's one time the flat earthers did a test with a really sensitive, you know what a gyroscope is, right?
Mm-mm.
It's that you put a string around it, you'd pull it, and then you could like balance it on something, and it uses centripetal force to stay up,
Okay.
like kind of like a top.
Right.
Yeah. So they had like an electronic one that they put in a box, and they put that box in a bigger box, and then it was so sensitive because according to them, like if we were really rotating on a globe, we would rotate 15 degrees like in 15 minutes or something like that. And so they put this in a box and try to hide it and like fake it out, and it calculated that shift in degrees, so it was upright for where it used to be positioned. And
Right.
so then they're like, oh no, that can't be real. So they did it again and it did it again. But they didn't want to believe it. They just thought the machine was broken. But this is like a multi-$1,000 gyroscope.
Yeah. And it's not broken.
And it's not broken. Your belief is.
Some
Anyway.
would say.
Anyway, moving on. So now we're gonna talk about some pop culture conspiracy. You've probably know these ones. Like Elvis is still alive.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
That Tupac faked his death and moved to Cuba.
I didn't know about Tupac.
Okay, and what about Paul McCartney dying in 1966 but was replaced with a double?
I think I have heard that one.
Okay. So that one, the Paul is dead theory, it was massive in the late 60s, and fans believed that clues were hidden in the Beatles' album art and song lyrics. Backwards
Yeah.
messages, strange symbolism, and weird glances in photos. The theory claimed that after Paul's death, the band covered it up with a lookalike named Billy Shears. Then came Avril Lavigne. According to the theory,
No.
she died sometime after her debut album and was replaced with a body double named Melissa.
Her like best friend.
Yeah, the evidence, a change in her handwriting, some red carpet photos, a wily speculative Brazilian blog post. These theories are more urban legends than anything else, rooted in fan grief, pop culture obsession, and our very human inability to accept sudden death or change.
It's just weird to me, the Avril Lavigne one, like, because she didn't die, her handwriting
Her hand,
changed.
there are people try to say her handwriting changed, her nose changed, like people don't get plastic surgery. Some people even say her voice changed. But
I don't
as you
agree.
age, your voice changes sometimes.
Yeah, but I also don't agree that it's been to such an extent. And I was an Avril Lavigne fan. So, like, I don't know. I don't hear what people are hearing. I don't think it's changed that much.
If you go into watch a YouTube video of it, like some of it, the way they talk about it can be pretty compelling, but still like, really?
Why have people not like said anything about Miley Cyrus then? Her voice has done like almost a complete flip from Hannah
Yeah.
Montana.
Absolutely. But she's not dead. So, and then now we're going to talk also about how the Simpsons predict the future.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So this show that has been running for over 30 years, and across that time it has strangely, quote unquote, predicted a number of major events, from Donald Trump to becoming president, to Disney buying Fox, to the discovery of Higgs boson particle. Fans have pulled episode clips that seem eerily prophetic. So naturally, some folks started to wonder, is The Simpsons a prophetic oracle, or are the writers time travelers? In reality, the writers are just smart, observant satirists who exaggerate real-world trends, and after 3 decades of content, some of it was bound to end up in reality. That's not prophecy, it's probability. But the coincidences can be a little bit spooky, and kind of gets into that deeper realm of, ooh, maybe they know something we don't.
Yeah, I've seen like those episodes or watched a couple where like they're predicting something over a year in advance.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's even like several years, and you're
Yeah.
like,
The one that really got me though was like the one where they predicted Donald Trump being president, and it's literally in The Simpsons. It's him going down the escalator, and it says Donald Trump for president or something on a banner. And then when he was running, he went down an escalator that had a banner that said Trump for president. Like, and it was just like the same
But
thing.
how much is Trump doing that on purpose? Like, how much you want to
You
bet
think
that
he
dude?
watched a Simpsons show and went, I want to do that.
How much you want to bet that dude is so bored? He watched The Simpsons and was like, huh, maybe I could be president.
I could see him doing that.
And then, like, yeah, copying that exact clip. I could totally see that.
Ay, ay, ay. Okay, so now that we've dipped our toes into the shallow end, we're going to go a little bit deeper into the middle of the iceberg, the part packed with globally known theories that, while not necessarily true, have convinced millions. These theories that put people up to debate over dinner, they write books about it, and sometimes they base entire belief systems on it. So, unlike our satirical bird drones or dead pop stars, these ones they feel more possible to many people because they often involve real institutions, real government agencies, and sometimes just a little bit of truth.
Drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. So, just like you had mentioned earlier, the moon landing hoax.
Right.
On July 20th, 1969, millions of people watched as Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon's surface. Or did they? According to the conspiracy theorists, the Apollo 11 mission never actually landed on the moon. It was staged in a Hollywood-style studio as Cold War propaganda to beat the Soviets in the space race. This idea took off in the 1970s, a time when Americans' trust in the government was eroding fast, thanks to Watergate, Vietnam, and the increasing political cynicism. Books like We Never Went to the Moon argue that the footage was directed by none other than Stanley Kubrick, and some even claimed that he left behind clues in The Shining. Theories point to things like the flag waving in a windless environment, the lack of stars in the photos, and shadows that supposedly fall in unnatural directions. But all of these points have been thoroughly debunked. The flag only moved because it was being planted. There are no visible stars because of the camera exposure, and the shadows align perfectly with the light source, the sun.
I understand where people are coming from, but also, even if that is real, let's just give it, devil's advocate. Even if that is real.
You mean real that it's faked?
Yeah. Okay.
That wouldn't bother you on some level if it was actually faked?
To beat somebody in the Cold War?
It wasn't really to beat somebody in the Cold War. It was Cold War propaganda.
Or to, like, give propaganda saying they beat somebody in the Cold War?
Yeah.
We have landed on the moon.
Well, yeah, but see, I think because we landed on the moon, you can't wrap your head around being like, what would that mean? What the implications be if we found out that we didn't actually go to the moon?
I just mean since we have landed on the moon. So even if that is fake.
I don't think we've landed on the moon recently, have we? I think that was our only one.
I don't know about recently. No, why would that be the only one if people are landing on Mars?
They're not landing on... No one's been to Mars yet. No one's been to Mars yet.
Not a person, but they just sent last moon landing.
1972.
So it is still Apollo 17. Okay, let me look up the last moon landing period.
Well, so there was the one in 1969, which is the first one, which was Apollo 11, and then Apollo 17 in 72. We haven't been back since.
And nobody else has gone. There's Apollo 11, Apollo 13. Apollo 16, Apollo 14, but maybe they all didn't make it. Okay, so I understand after looking that up why that is such a big conspiracy theory, because if we've never done it,
how do we plan on going to Mars?
How do we know the moon is? Yeah. Okay. I can understand. Why had I thought that we had been to the moon before?
Just so many times.
Like recently. I thought at least other countries were going to the moon.
Yeah, I didn't know nobody else has landed on the moon from what you were reading.
Let me look.
It's fascinating to me because, like, if we didn't actually land on the moon, our technology isn't as good as we think it is for Earth. Because if you think about your cell phone has more memory than it took to get to the moon.
Soviet Union, China, India, and Japan.
Okay, so that's good.
USSR.
The USSR no more.
Yeah, but that was the first to achieve a lunar landing with a robotic spacecraft, the Luna 2 mission. Japan, it says recently. Yeah, hold on. Okay. Japan was Okay. Japan's SLIM mission recently landed on the moon, making them the 5th country to achieve lunar landing. And now I'm like, what is recently?
What is recently?
They launched September 6, 2023, and they landed on the moon January 19th last year. Okay, yeah. So to me, that is like where my head is
as
at.
humanity.
Like, we have landed on the moon. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah,
but I get it.
NASA.
I get the like.
And NASA brought back over 800 pounds of moon rock, installed laser reflectors that can still be targeted from Earth, and documented every step of the mission with data verified by scientists worldwide. Still, a Gallup poll survey as recently as 1999 found that 6% of Americans believed the landing was faked, and a 2001 Fox special titled Conspiracy Theory, Do We Land on the Moon? Only amplified doubt. Even Buzz Aldrin, the second man on the moon, once punched a guy in the face for accusing him of lying.
Can you imagine just like that not being moon rock and us just having that much like random dirt hanging out or like clumps of moon rock?
Yeah, it's just like
it's all like
ashes or something.
Yeah, that we're just like, look at our moon rocks.
Next, perhaps the conspiracy theory that defines the genre, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. On November 22nd, 1963, JFK was shot while riding through Dealey Plaza in Dallas. The official story is that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, firing 3 shots from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. But from the very beginning, public didn't buy it. Was there a second shooter? What about the magic bullet? Who was the mysterious man with the umbrella? Why was Oswald murdered just 2 days later by Jack Ruby live on television? Theories have pointed fingers at the CIA, the Mafia, Fidel Castro, the KGB, Lyndon B. Johnson, and even rogue elements of the military-industrial complex. In fact, one author once joked that 42 groups, 82 assassins, and 214 people have been implicated in JFK conspiracy theories. And it's not just a fringe belief. A 2017 538 poll showed that 61% of Americans still believe there was a conspiracy involved. Even official investigations were split. The Warren Commission in 1964 said Oswald acted alone, but the House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1979 concluded that there was probably a conspiracy. We may never know the truth fully, but the JFK assassination remains a symbol, a moment when America's innocence was shattered and the door to conspiracy culture swung wide open.
Isn't Marilyn Monroe tied to that? Because she died... under somewhat suspicious
from my understanding, she had a suspicious, somewhat,
barbiturate overdose at the age of 36. Yeah, so a lot of people have also thought like she knew something, so she was also murdered.
An accident.
Yeah, like she OD'd. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty sure like a lot of people didn't know her to do
I'm
drugs.
Honestly not 100% really followed her story. That would be cool because I do find
an episode on that. Even a
Was she
famously
insane,
insane
though?
episode.
Interesting.
Some people say, some people don't.
Now let's talk about UFOs, specifically Roswell and Area
Ooh,
51. In 1947, something crashed on a ranch
right.
in Roswell, New Mexico. The military first reported that it had recovered a flying disc, then quickly retracted the statement, saying it was just a weather balloon. Too late, the seeds of suspicion were planted, and years later it was revealed that the object was actually
Right.
part of Project Mogul, a top secret program using balloons to detect Soviet nuclear tests, but by then the idea that Roswell was a UFO crash site had exploded. Books, movies, eyewitnesses, and even
Mhm.
fake government documents claimed alien bodies were recovered and hidden away in a secret facility, Area 51, a classified military base in Nevada. Officially, Area 51 was used to test experimental aircraft like the U-2 spy plane and later stealth bombers, but for decades, the government didn't even acknowledge the base existed. That vacuum of information was filled with,
Mhm.
well, whatever people wanted to believe, alien spacecraft, reverse engineered tech, and in black. In 1989, Bob Lazar claimed he worked on a UFO tech at a facility near Area 51. His credibility was later questioned, but his story launched a new
Right.
wave of belief.
His story was questioned, but didn't they try to kick him out of
I
the
did not
country for
check
that?
up on his story.
I can't remember exactly how it goes, but he was basically I think treated poorly in one way or another. And
Yeah.
I'm I don't know. To some point, I think UFOs could have landed here, but I also think that
Oh,
suspicious
absolutely. I
stuff like that
agree.
does happen.
I just think I that's one of the things that's hard too, because like the government has the ability to do a lot of different things with a lot of secrecy, and then for them to slip up and be like, "Oh, it's a weather balloon." No, to be like, "Oh, we recovered a disc." Just kidding. It's a weather balloon.
Yeah, it's also don't they have a bunch of secret bunkers, and then even close to us there's this
Oh yeah, I'm
constant
familiar with
booming
that.
sound and people are
They were like, "What? Did everybody just hear that
what
boom?"
is that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just happens randomly and they're just oh, there's a military base close by. They're
Testing
just
what?
testing equipment. And you're also, how can we hear it
Yeah.
4 towns over within the 4
It's
towns?
allowed.
What is that?
By the time 2019 rolled
Yeah.
around, a joke Facebook event called Storm Area 51 They Can't Stop All of Us went viral. Over 2 million people RSVP'd and a handful actually showed up. Do you remember that? I think that was the one where they
Only
were
a
planning on Naruto
handful?
running out of
No.
the gates. Something like that. They were planning on Naruto running.
They were what?
Naruto is an anime and they run
What is that?
they lean really far forward and their hands are behind them. Instead of running with their arms, pumping, they run with their arms straight back. It's like a ninja run. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
today Roswell is a tourist hub. Area 51 is still active, and belief in alien visitation is growing, fueled in part by recent Pentagon acknowledgments of unidentified aerial phenomenon and what
There's
unidentified aerial phenomenon.
unidentified.
So the question is, are they real? But I mean, whether or not they are, the cover-up culture of the Cold War, the secrecy of the black budget military programs, and the human desire to not be alone in the universe really makes this theory stick.
And could also
It
all
could
be
be.
connected.
Okay, so have you ever heard of HAARP? HAARP? No? Okay, I hadn't either. So it
No.
stands for High Frequency Active Aural or Aurora. Let me try that again. High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, which is a real facility in Alaska that studies the ionosphere. I can say ionosphere without a problem, but I can't say auroral. Okay. And the ionosphere is a layer of Earth's upper atmosphere. But for years, HARP has been accused of something a little bit more sinister: weather control. Some believe it can generate earthquakes, manipulate storms, or even mind control entire populations. Iran once accused HARP of causing drought. Others blamed it. Iran.
Iran
With
or
an R.
Elon?
Uncultured swine say Iran.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I didn't say it, but I
No,
thought you
Iran
were
the country.
referring to a person.
Elon.
And I thought you were
No.
saying Elon Musk. Yeah.
Others
Okay,
blamed
keep going.
HARP for the 2010 Haiti earthquake. hurricanes, and even plane crashes. But was it real? HARP uses radio waves to study how energy
Probably
moves
not.
through the atmosphere. It's a science experiment. It doesn't have anywhere near the power required to do what conspiracy theorists claim, but its antennas and remote location and the fact that it
Right.
was funded by the military make it look suspicious to the untrained eye. So again, government
Right.
secrets, lots of money. Could be.
Could be.
We don't know. This is
But
why it gets weird too, because it starts
probability.
to, because you can think of like how much power the government does have and what they can keep secret, and so it makes people start to really question these things.
Yeah, and this is why people start wearing tinfoil hats and not using cell phones and covering the little cameras
Yeah.
on their
Yep. Oh my gosh, and people
computer
have
and
taped. I'm like,
phone.
stop it. They can still hear you through your microphone. Stop it. You're being silly.
Stop it.
Okay, so this one, you've definitely seen them. It's the white trails left behind jets as they streak across the sky. To most, they're just contrails, which is condensation from water vapor. But to the believers in the chemtrail conspiracy, there's something worse. The claim that planes are spraying chemicals into the atmosphere to control weather, spread disease, manipulate minds,
Yeah, I've
or
heard
alter
that.
the environment. Some say it's geoengineering, others call it population control. In reality, contrails are well understood. Whether they linger or dissipate depends on altitude, humidity, and temperature, but because they're visible and everywhere, they make it easy targets for suspicion. A 2016 study of atmospheric
Right.
scientists found that 76 out of 77 had seen no evidence of chemtrails. The other one just misread his data. Yeah, the 77th just misread his data.
Oh, okay.
But like HARP, chemtrails tap into a deeper fear of government overreach, environmental decay, and the idea that something is happening above us and we're not being told the truth.
Can you can you imagine being that scientist and like
And he's
that
like,
data
oh yeah, absolutely.
that
And all the
data
other
is
scientists are like,
searchable?
did you read that right?
But also, can you imagine being like in the whole thing, like 76 are like, no, and then he's just
What was the
like,
assignment?
oh, I don't know how to read this.
I didn't do my homework.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're getting deeper. We are going to be talking about some medical conspiracies. So you've heard of the term big pharma. So to most, it's
Yeah, of
shorthand for the
course.
very real influence that pharmaceutical companies have on healthcare, pricing, and legislation. To other, I
This
see
one to some extent, I
there's so much
believe.
that you could be like, yeah, I
Honestly.
can see that being true. Yeah.
To
So
some
to
extent, I
others, it's a
believe it. Yeah.
symbol of something far more nefarious. A cartel of corporations hiding cures,
Yeah.
creating diseases, or poisoning the public for profit. This theory, of course, became
Right.
huge during COVID-19. Rumors spread that vaccines were secretly implanted with microchips, altering our DNA or part of the global depopulation plan. Some linked it to Bill Gates, others said 5G towers were
Right.
involved. Rumors spread. Sorry.
Uh-huh.
Let's go.
That one
Just
is kind of funny.
those 5G
Those
towers.
5G towers.
So none of these claims hold up scientifically. The microchip idea is physically impossible at the current tech sizes. The mRNA vaccines do not alter your DNA, and
Right.
the ingredients are publicly listed. Or are they? But real issues like profit driven drug companies, a history of medical racism, and unethical experiments like the Tuskegee study make people suspicious, and conspiracy thinking fills in the blanks. The result, mistrust, division, and sometimes preventable deaths.
Well, it goes further than that. Like, have you heard about the guy that started, like, I think it's Marlboro. The cigarette yeah.
Marlboro? Yeah.
Marlboro cigarette. And I think he started, like, I can't remember exactly what it is, but he owns like an energy company or like a soda company or something like that that's also like causing people to get sick. And then there's like a whole cycle to it. There's also companies like Pfizer that owns like other food brands or something.
It pays to be in the corporation.
Yeah. Then there's also like that, like what people are okay, so when we were kids, this is an example. Margarine.
Can't believe it's not
Do you
butter.
remember margarine
Yeah.
was like the best thing ever? Yeah, and they
Yeah.
were like, this is so much better for you than butter. But it's because I can't believe it's not butter paid more for that to be advertised. And it has nothing to do with that. It's the same with, what was it, like 10 years ago, they were trying to say
The high
corn
fructose
syrup is good
high
for you.
fructose corn syrup. Yeah.
Do you remember that?
They're like,
Yeah.
it's just sugar.
Yeah. And they were like, oh, it's better than sugar. No, they were like, it's better than sugar. It's good for you. It's heart healthy. And they like, actually, what's happening is that they're just like,
it's
the one
they
making
call it,
more
what is
money
it, with
at
healthy
that
things, they call
time.
it greenwashing. So you can, there's a
Yeah,
guy
some
on
sort of
TikTok
propaganda for
who
sure.
does like marketing, and he'll take Skittles, for example, and he'll rebrand it as a healthy brand, and everything that he's doing is legit, and it just makes it sound healthy. But it's not. It's just sugar, but it's not. Yeah.
But it's not. Yeah, it's Skittles. The fact that anyone can make
Yeah,
Skittles sound healthy.
if I can find
is
it, I'll send you
just
some stuff. Yeah, he'll take some of the most unhealthy stuff and he'll make it sound healthy. And everything he's saying in the video is factual, that it
right.
contains this and doesn't contain that. So
There's also, sorry, I know so much about like food stuff because of William. There's also like organic brands. You have to pay attention to like the number of the produce. And I think it's like 9s are where you want to be, but like 4s are labeled organic, but
interesting.
they're like GMO. Yeah, you have to like pay attention to the label on the fruit, the sticker. And I think 4s are like bad; those are GMO. And then I think it's 9s.
Well, so like
are
with
like
the
actually
organic, it just means that it
organic.
wasn't treated with anything extra. It doesn't mean that it wasn't modified. Yeah.
Genetically modified, right? And then there's like so many other things that I could dig into.
I
The
just feel like
food
the
stuff,
United States needs to adopt more of the European idea when it comes to like food. Like if it's banned in Europe, why
right?
can't it? Come on,
Why is it
come on,
not banned
Cheetos!
here?
Like get
Like,
it
get rid
together.
of
Like
Mountain Dew.
if you can't have certain
Why
things
do
in
we
Europe,
need
why are you
it?
putting it in these Cheetos? Like what's the
And on top of that, like, why are they even getting added?
the red
Like,
color? They really have to
period.
have that color.
Why? We're not freaking
No,
insects
but you
trying
know
to
who is
attract to
attracted
a
to it?
flower. We're like,
Kids.
kids maybe are, and I understand that, but like they would be just as attracted to that if their brains weren't brainwashed to look for that in
Yeah,
their food. Like they are tiny little molded humans. We're the ones being like, look at this extra orange Cheeto.
This is delicious.
This is what you like. Yeah, they would like it if it was brown.
I don't think I would.
Because you're said child trained.
Oh, and
Remember
purple
green
ketchup?
ketchup? I always talk about that.
They had green and purple, yeah.
I don't remember purple, but I had green. And the fact that my mom even bought that, I'm like, what made
like,
you
why
think
though?
that was a good idea? Yeah, hold on.
We've explored the silly, the plausible, and the persistent. But now we're going to enter the zone that's more complicated, which is like the confirmed conspiracies, which the ones that actually turned out to be real.
Oh, yeah.
So
I
this is where it gets a little weird
so
because once you realize that some conspiracies actually happened, it becomes harder to draw the line between critical thinking and full-on paranoia.
Yeah, I actually saw on Instagram a guy, like an old man, he seemed like a politician, was like talking about how there's more conspiracy theories that have turned out to be correct.
Which why doesn't surprise me when it ends up being real.
So keep going. Yeah, me either. I definitely wouldn't be surprised about the pharmaceutical mixed with food, mixed with other, like them just prescribing drugs to like not actually help that's actually been proven, is that medication is being prescribed as like like an umbrella of help, but not per the person. So they're just kind of like umbrella-ing symptoms.
Yeah, that's one of our big issues
really
with our healthcare industry is we have focused on symptom relief instead of the root, which a lot of it comes back down to your food you eat. It's rough, man.
Yeah, which
it's rough out here.
Owned by some pharmacies. So
okay, so this one is not a theory; it's fact. Have you heard of Project MK Ultra? So it was a top secret CIA program that began in the 1950s. Its purpose was to explore mind control techniques That included dosing unsuspecting people with LSD, hypnotizing them, electroshocking them, and trying out truth serums in the 1950s.
When did this happen?
I did.
Okay, you did say that. And this was like people were not signing up
Yes,
for
these
this.
were
They
non-consensual
testing it out.
experiments, which were often conducted on prisoners, psychiatric patients, and marginalized people. In one infamous sub-project called Operation Midnight Complex. Let me try that again. Operation Midnight Climax, the CIA even ran fake brothels in San Francisco, secretly drugging clients and observing their behavior behind two-way mirrors. Yes, this actually happened.
Oh my God.
Much of MK Ultra was destroyed in 1973 under CIA Director Richard Helms, but thanks to the Church Committee hearings in the mid-70s, documents were unearthed, witnesses testified, and the public learned that the US government had secretly experimented on its own citizens for decades.
Yeah,
It's no
1973.
It's
This
no
was
wonder that
unearthed.
MK Ultra has since
Jesus.
become a touchstone in conspiracy lore. Some believe it never ended, but that it evolved into other programs. Others say it explains erratic behavior in public figures or celebrities, but those claims often lack evidence, and the core truth remains that the US government once tried to control minds and has succeeded in destroying trust. Another confirmed conspiracy is the COINTELPRO, or the FBI's counterintelligence program. Between the 1950s and the 1970s, I'm noticing a theme. The FBI,
Yeah.
the FBI ran a
1950s,
covert campaign
1970s.
to spy on, infiltrate, and discredit civil rights leaders, leftist organizations, anti-war activists, and even feminists. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a
Sounds
prime target.
familiar.
The FBI wiretapped his phones, bugged his hotel rooms, and even sent him anonymous letters trying to push him to commit suicide. It sounds like dystopian fiction, but it's true. The documents were leaked, verified, and denounced, but
It's
only years
real.
after the damage was already done. So this is one of those historical facts that validates the instincts of conspiracy believers, because when the government is actually caught conspiring, the question becomes, what else are you hiding?
Right, of course.
And for a course current theme as well, from 1932 to 1972, the US Public Health Service conducted a study on the natural progression of untreated syphilis in black men in Tuskegee, Alabama. The participants, 600 in total, were told that they were being treated for quote unquote bad blood, but they weren't. Even after penicillin became the standard cure in the 1940s, treatment was deliberately withheld, and the goal was to observe what happened if the disease went untreated. Over 100 men died, dozens of wives were infected, and children were born with congenital syphilis. The
Right.
truth came out in the 70s, and the scandal remains one of the most horrific examples of medical racism in US history. And again, it's not a theory, it's a documented
Right.
atrocity, and another reason why some communities have deep generational distrust of the medical system.
Well, I also am like, okay, they're saying that all of this was found out in the 70s, but people are right. What's to say that it's not still happening?
And that's kind of,
just,
I
like,
also think,
sort of
why like the
reformed.
COVID-19 vaccines and all that became like a huge thing, is because they're like, what if they're just testing things on us and they don't really know the answers?
I also think part of that is like it was so much at like so much happened all of a sudden. Like we
Yeah.
suddenly weren't able to leave our houses. We
Yeah.
had to like stay out of our parks, and like we couldn't even go for like a walk, even if you weren't like with
They're like,
people, which
don't go
is just
outside.
like, I don't know, super weird. Yeah, and then on top of that, people were getting fired from jobs if they didn't get a vaccine. And it's like, it sort of felt, I understand why people felt that that was like controlling. I mean, there's a lot of theories around it,
Oh, yeah,
but I do sort of understand.
I can definitely understand where people would
like, parts
start to
of
go
it.
towards a conspiracy mindset with a lot of things, because why? Why can't I go out? Why can't I go outside?
That was the weirdest thing. And you and I spent COVID together a
did.
lot.
We
Thank
did spend a lot of time
God. I would
together.
have just like, but it was so like, even like businesses were shut down. Do you remember like Murphy's was like dead, and it was just so weird. And you're like, why can't we just like walk outside in public without the potential of getting
And
fined?
then they
It was
started being
just
like,
so
okay, well, you can
weird.
go dine, but you have to wear a mask. until you get to your seat, because then COVID can't get you there.
Until you eat. Until you start eating. Until you have a
That doesn't make any
beverage. And
sense
we were all like,
because that table is right next to me, like
okay.
just an arm length away, and I don't have to wear my mask now because I have food. Ugh, so weird.
Right. And actually, honestly, it was probably safer to not have a mask on when you were walking around versus people with their mouth open taking bites of food, just breathing into the world
What
as
a
they're
time.
eating.
So
Yeah.
this next one, it never
No,
happened.
thanks.
It never happened, but it nearly did. In the
Okay.
early 1960s, U.S.
Oh
military
boy.
officials drafted a proposal called Operation Northwoods. The plan suggested staging fake terrorist attacks, including plane hijackings, bombings, and even false flag assaults on U.S. soil. A false flag is when we make it seem like someone else attacked us, but they didn't. Like, oh, China attacked us, so we're gonna attack China. That's a false flag.
So this ties
Kind of
into like
that idea.
9/11
That's
even.
where anyway. So it's like in order, so they wanted to plan these false flag assaults on U.S. soil in order to justify war with Cuba. So again, they considered that's who they wanted to. Yeah, that's who they wanted to go to
Cuba?
war with, and so they wanted to like.
I'm so stupid. We have not
Remember, I
ever gone
said
to
this
war
one
with
never
Cuba,
happened, but
right?
nearly did.
I did, but I am also confirming that like
No, we
we
just had a
still didn't
standoff.
ever go to war with Cuba.
Yeah. So they
Okay.
seriously considered staging fake attacks on Americans to sway public opinion. The proposal was ultimately rejected by President Kennedy, but the
Uh-huh.
fact that it was written is kind of scary. So,
Have people not considered
oh,
what
I'm sure it's
is
a lot
being
worse.
written out
But it's
even
like
today?
there's a lot of documents that we don't see. And one of the things that I can understand from this too is if they talked about this in the 60s, I could see them doing that like you said earlier, like 9/11. Like they could have that could have been a plan to in order for us to go to war, you know.
Kennedy didn't
Yeah, like
sign
somebody's
it,
like,
but
"Oh,
what's to say
that's
the
not a bad
next one
idea." Like
didn't?
you never know, and that's why and that's how conspiracies happen. It's because we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
not
toying
saying yes or
we're
no to
playing with
this. It's
ideas.
just like saying that there's other
Yeah.
conspiracies that tie into this, like including was it the oh my god,
Pearl Harbor, yeah, that
Pearl
could be
Harbor?
considered one. I mean, if you wanted to go that direction, you could. There's ways to do it. I mean, anything could be conspiracy if you try hard enough.
Really wanted to,
So
yeah.
yeah, some conspiracies are real, and when those get exposed, they lend legitimacy to the other ones. So it becomes harder to dismiss the more outlandish ideas when the government has, at times, proven the conspiracy mindset right. So that brings us to a really important
Right.
question: like, why do people believe in conspiracy? Why like why do why do otherwise rational people fall down these rabbit holes, and why do we feel drawn to some of these stories? Psychology tells us that humans are wired to recognize patterns. It's how we have survived by spotting danger, tracking prey, and building logic.
Right.
But sometimes the pattern seeking goes too far and we seek connections where none actually exist. Faces in the clouds, secret codes in song lyrics,
Right.
100 unrelated dots connecting into one imagined web. This is called apophenia, and it's a core ingredient in conspiracy thinking.
You know, sometimes I stare at the clouds long enough and I think I can see the earth moving.
Do you have a therapist?
No, but I'm just saying that's my mind
Yeah.
trying to like put a pattern in with something. And it's
Mhm.
like I know it's
Yeah.
not real. I'm just saying like I
Another
get
reason
it.
is the need for control. So in times of uncertainty, people crave structure. They want explanations. And if the world feels chaotic with pandemic,
Right.
wars, economic collapses, conspiracy theories offer something powerful, which is a villain, a reason, a plan. Even if the theory is terrifying, it's often less scary than facing the randomness. Believing that someone or anyone is in control or even malevolent control can feel better than believing that no one is.
I understand all that, but like a lot of conspiracy theories point to our government, which has
But
yet to even
that's
be
at least you like
overthrown.
if that's where it points to, at least there's someone to point a finger at. Like if you really have no idea why something happens, which I also think you can also lend into religion. Like people want to have a sense of belonging. So, like, and that's another reason too, is that the identity of community. So belief in conspiracy often gives people a sense of belonging, a feeling of being in the know, or having special knowledge that the masses don't. There are forums like YouTube, Telegram, and entire
Right.
communities devoted to decoding the truth. So to question the theory can feel like betrayal, and that's why some people double down. And even when evidence contradicts their beliefs, it's not just about facts, it's about their identity.
Right.
Another reason that they could fall into it is for distrust in authority. So, like governments, corporations, and institutions have definitely lied repeatedly, and sometimes that comes with grave consequences. So, when a new crisis arises, a pandemic, a war, a
Right.
financial collapse, people who've already lost trust fall back on the alternative explanations. It's not irrational to be skeptical, but conspiracy belief often turns skepticism into absolutism and quote, nothing they say is true, everything is a lie. And that's a dangerous mind pattern. And that becomes,
Right.
and once you start to
It's
fall
also a
into that, it
scary
becomes a
world to
really
live in.
dangerous loop.
Right.
Another reason that people also will believe in this too is there's the thrill of the chase, like discovering a new truth that's really exciting. It's the mystery where you're the detective and you get to solve it. So it's a dopamine rush, a dopamine chase, and some psychologists compare conspiracy rabbit holes to addictive behavior. The more you search, the more you crave. The further down you go, the less you trust anything that doesn't support your view.
Yeah, but there's so many people that are conspiracy theories. They can't all
No,
have
but I
this
mean, a lot of
addictive
people do spend some of
behavior.
their fun, like, time deep diving Google into conspiracy theories.
I mean, I get it, but like think about, have you heard about those people that would just like dance, the dancing phenomenon where they would dance until they literally
That's
like would
vaguely
die?
familiar.
There's different groups of people. Yeah, there's different groups of people in the world that have like succumbed to this like dancing illness. And it's like stuff like that is like, why would groups of people in one area just suddenly
I
not
don't
be
know,
able to
something's wrong with
stop
their brain?
dancing?
Yeah, why not?
In a group in different places in the world. I understand why some people are like, okay, we need answers, but I also think just looping them all into like, oh, they have addictive
That's a
personality
potential.
disorder, like
Those
I get it, but also looping
Yeah, I
everyone
mean,
in that is
I'm
just
sure
like,
you a
no.
grain of salt. Grain of salt. So,
Mhm.
what do we do with all this? We've traveled from parody to plausibility, from hoax to history, from fun to fanaticism. Some conspiracy theories are funny, some are dangerous,
Mhm.
and some are truly dark and walking the line between the two. But the truth is, people want answers, they crave
Right.
meaning, they don't trust power, and that's sometimes for good reason. But that doesn't mean every theory is
Right.
true. Skepticism is healthy, curiosity is healthy, but
Mhm.
certainty without evidence, that's when the conspiracy becomes a cage. We live in a world filled with real injustices, real secrets, real power imbalances, and there's no need to invent lizard people when the truth is already horrifying enough. Stay curious, stay critical, and always
Right.
ask who profits from my belief in this. Because not every conspiracy is crazy, but they can't all be true, can they?
Right. We don't know.
What do you think?
It's good. Yeah, I like it. I'm glad you dove into them like slightly and then we didn't dissect them. I
Oh
think it
yeah,
keeps it a little bit more
I didn't want to
lighthearted, but
go. I didn't
also
want to
like
go too deep because
informative.
like they can get real dark real fast. Yeah, I
Then you're
can't. I don't.
spiraling as
I'm not built
well.
for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a fun little overview of conspiracy and things like that. So apparently you believe in some conspiracy theories.
I think to some extent, some. I'm not like over here in a deep rabbit, but like definitely the pharmaceutical companies buying out like cereal brands that are supposedly, part of the problem, and then different additives and foods that are making us sick. Like why the heck is citric acid even a part of our food? That's like a fungus that makes
I'm on
people
the same
super
boat when
sick.
it comes to like cancer. I feel like there's a lot of money to be made in cancer treatment.
Hmm.
So if and they have
And they
more,
might
I
have
think that
more.
they potentially have a better treatment slash cure for cancer.
Quite frankly, I think
I
women's
would think
health
that women's
falls
health is
in
probably
that as
one
well.
of the bigger ones. Well, because also like
Hmm.
we're going on a tangent here, but like why do the women's got to do the birth control,
which it has also
impacts your
actively
health negatively.
negatively affected us. It's not even just
cancer
birth control,
causing.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think women's health overall is like definitely falls in that. Like, why have they not spent time on it? And there's women doctors out there. So like people are like, oh, we live in a patriarch. But like, are they signing like an oath of like, we're not gonna dive into this stuff? Like, isn't it weird?
So anyway, any final words?
I think conspiracy theories, and it's good to have critical thinking. It causes people to use their brains in like an out of the box way. Just don't go so far. Don't end up in, under the iceberg where you're like, how am I going to get out of this? Because sometimes people will go too far and possibly even kind of ruin their lives with it.
Listen to evidence that's actually brought to you that is factual. It's very important.
And understand two things can be true. One conspiracy can be true, but this one can be false.
Yeah.
Two things can be true.
Today's episode of That's Peculiar. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. I liked it. Bye.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of That's Peculiar. Like, follow, and share so we can reach more listeners like you. Come back next Friday for another episode of That's Peculiar.